Buzzards Roost Cave Guide, Abandonment Tragedy? On an evening in 1995, a group of adventurous tourists arrived at Buzzards Roost Cave in Kentucky for a wild cave tour. The tour promised an exciting underground experience, with technical cable ladders and tight rock squeezes. A guide named Gordon Hardin was in charge of leading the group safely through the cave and back out again. The group followed Hardin deep into the cave, climbing down ladders and crawling through narrow passages. The tour was physically demanding, and the group moved slower than the guide had planned. By around 7 o'clock in the evening, they had reached a deep section of the cave near a 20-foot hanging ladder. Hardin looked at his watch and told the group they were behind schedule. Then he did something that no cave guide should ever do. He told the group to wait at the bottom of the ladder while he went back up to make a phone call. Before anyone could argue, Hardin climbed up the ladder and disappeared into the darkness above. The group stood at the bottom, confused, cold, and completely alone in the cave. Minutes passed and the temperature around them kept dropping. They had no guide, no radio, and no way of knowing when Hardin would come back. 30 minutes went by and there was still no sign of him. The group grew more and more anxious as the darkness pressed in around them. A man in the group named Bill Coughlin decided he could not wait any longer. He grabbed the hanging cable ladder and began climbing up on his own to find the guide. The ladder swung and twisted against the rock wall as Bill pulled himself higher. Without proper training or someone holding the ladder steady, his grip failed. Bill fell from the ladder and slammed into the rock below with a sickening impact. His head struck the stone hard, and his body became wedged tightly in a rock formation. The rest of the group screamed for help, but their voices echoed into nothing. Nearly an hour after leaving, Gordon Hardin finally returned to the group. He found Bill unconscious, bleeding from the head, and trapped between the rocks. But Hardin had not brought a medical kit with him, and he had no emergency supplies. He did not immediately call for emergency services, wasting precious time that Bill did not have. By the time professional rescuers finally reached the cave, Bill's condition had become critical. He was carefully extracted from the rocks and rushed to the nearest hospital. But the damage to his brain was too severe, and Bill Coughlin died the following day. Talu Cave Flash Flood Disaster. On a rainy morning in October 2007, a group of 8 foreign tourists arrived at Khao Sok National Park in southern Thailand. They had signed up for an exciting adventure, a guided walk through the famous Nam Talu Cave. The cave was a long tunnel carved through an entire limestone mountain, with a river running through its floor. 2 local Thai guides were assigned to lead the group into the cave that day. But before they even reached the entrance, park rangers stopped them with a serious warning. It had been raining heavily for 3 straight hours, and the river inside the cave was rising fast. Villagers nearby also told the guides that it was far too dangerous to go inside. There were large signs posted at the cave entrance written in both English and Thai, warning of deadly flash floods. On top of all that, the cave was officially closed for the monsoon season, but the 2 guides ignored every single warning and led the tourists inside anyway. The group walked into the dark tunnel, splashing through ankle-deep water, as they moved deeper underground. Among the tourists was a 10-year-old boy walking alongside the adults who trusted the guides to keep them safe. For the first 20 minutes, everything seemed calm, and the group pushed further into the cave. Then, without any warning, a deep and terrifying roar echoed through the tunnel. A massive wall of water, over 33 feet high, came surging through the cave like a freight train. The floodwater hit the group with brutal force, sweeping people off their feet in an instant. Bodies were thrown against the cave walls and dragged underwater by the powerful current. There was no time to react, no time to run, and nowhere to escape. The lights went out and the cave was filled with the deafening sound of rushing water and screams. In the chaos, a British woman named Helena Carroll was slammed against the cave wall by the flood. By some miracle, her hands found a narrow rock ledge high above the waterline. She pulled herself up and clung to the ledge with every ounce of strength she had. The water raged beneath her, carrying everything and everyone else deeper into the darkness. Helena held on in total blackness, shivering and terrified, not knowing if anyone else was alive. She stayed on that ledge for 20 agonizing hours, alone in the dark with the sound of the flood still echoing around her. When the water finally dropped low enough, rescue teams entered the cave and found her alive. She was the only survivor. All 8 other members of the group were dead, including both guides and the 10-year-old boy. Their bodies were recovered from deep within the flooded cave system over the following days. The investigation that followed revealed that the guides had been clearly warned multiple times not to enter. They had ignored the park rangers, the villagers, the warning signs, and the official closure of the cave. Their negligence had directly caused the deaths of 8 innocent people. Nam Talu Cave, repeat flash flood tragedy. On August 6, 2024, a group of 22 foreign tourists boarded a boat in southern Thailand for what was supposed to be an exciting cave adventure. Their destination was Nam Talu Cave in Khao Sok National Park, the very same cave where 8 people had drowned in a flash flood back in 2007. 2 Thai guides were leading the tour, including a 37-year-old man named Pongyos Kurti. To reach the cave, the group had to take a 2-hour boat ride across a lake and then walk 2 kilometers through thick jungle. There was no cell phone signal anywhere in the area. When they arrived at the cave entrance, the signs could not have been more clear. Large official notices from the Department of National Parks stated that the cave was closed from June to November. The closure existed for one reason. The rainy season brought deadly flash floods that could fill the cave without warning. This was the exact same danger that had killed 8 people in the very same tunnel 17 years earlier. But the guides ignored the signs, ignored the closure, and led all 22 tourists into the cave anyway. It had been raining heavily in the mountains for 2 straight days before the group entered. The cave was 600 meters long and 30 meters wide at its mouth, with a stream running through the floor. The group walked through the tunnel, admiring the stalactites and rock formations along the way. For hours, everything seemed calm, and the tour continued deeper into the cave. Then, at around 7:30 in the evening, as the group was making their way back toward the entrance, the nightmare began. A wall of rainwater that had been building up in the mountains suddenly surged into the cave. The floodwater slammed through the tunnel with terrifying speed and force. Pongyos Kurti was knocked off his feet and swept deeper into the cave by the powerful current. The other guide and the 22 tourists fought against the water with everything they had. Park rangers rushed to the scene and managed to lead the surviving group to safety outside the cave. 2 Dutch women suffered leg injuries and were taken to a nearby hospital for treatment. The rest of the tourists were brought to a floating raft house inside the national park to rest for the night. But Pongyos was still missing somewhere inside the flooded cave. Rescue teams searched through the dark, water-filled tunnel for hours. At around 3:20 in the morning on August 7th, they finally found him. Pongyos Kurti was dead. He had drowned inside the same cave that had already taken 8 lives before. It took rescuers more than 2 hours just to carry his body out of the cave. The news spread around the world, and people were furious. How could guides take tourists into a cave that was officially closed because of the exact same danger that had killed people before? The governor of Surat Thani province ordered immediate legal action against the tour company. Datanla Falls unauthorized tour disaster. On February 26, 2016, 3 young British backpackers arrived at the Datanla waterfalls near the city of Dalat in central Vietnam. They were half-sisters Beth Anderson, aged 24, and Izzy Squire, aged 19, along with their friend Christian Sloan, who was also 24. The 3 had booked an adventure tour through a local travel company, expecting a safe and supervised experience. They were told the waterfall tour was not a particularly dangerous activity. A 26-year-old Vietnamese guide named Dong Van Sai was assigned to lead them into the waterfall system. The Datanla Falls were a popular tourist attraction surrounded by thick jungle, with multiple tiers of cascading water dropping over steep rock faces. Licensed tour companies operated safe, permitted routes through the area with proper safety equipment and trained guides. But Dong Van Sai did not take the group on one of those approved routes. Instead, he led the 3 tourists along an unauthorized path that local authorities had marked as dangerous. The group did not have the correct safety equipment for the route they were on. They had not bought the proper tickets for trekking, which meant they had bypassed the official safety checkpoints entirely. The guide brought them to a natural water slide carved into the rock by years of flowing water. One by one, the group slid down the slippery rock surface and splashed into a pool at the bottom. They were supposed to climb out of the pool immediately and stop there, but just 14 meters beyond the edge of that pool, a massive 50-foot waterfall dropped straight down into the rocks below. The group was not adequately warned about this lethal drop, waiting just steps away. The current in the pool was far stronger than it looked on the surface. Before anyone could react, the water grabbed all three tourists and pulled them toward the edge. Beth, Izzy, and Christian were swept over the 50-foot waterfall and plunged into the rocks below. The fall was violent and immediate, and none of them survived the impact. Rescue teams rushed to the scene and recovered all three bodies at the base of the waterfall. They were still wearing their life jackets, but no life jacket in the world could have saved them from that drop. Their bodies were transported to Ho Chi Minh City for examination. Dang Van Sai was immediately arrested by police and questioned about what had happened. He claimed the tourist had ignored his safety instructions, but investigators did not believe his version of events.